Well, hello, beautiful ones. This is Stacey Murphy, the head vixen of the Vixen Academy, and I want to welcome you to my Vixen podcast, where today I'm going to be talking about how to know when it's time to leave him and move the heck on. So it's also about how to navigate changing relationships. So I want to welcome all of my listeners here today. If this is your first time exposed to me or my community, you can find out more about what I do at thevixenacademy.com. But I am your love and intimacy coach. And I have the great honor and distinction of working with women from all over the world, teaching them how to be powerful, feminine, and seductive in life and love in the presence of high caliber men. So these ladies are able to step firm and stand firm in their queen status, allowing them to attract and maintain a happy and juicy and joyful relationship with their king that will stand the test of time. So let's kind of get into a little bit of this yumminess, right? About knowing when it's time to leave him and move on. And the reason why I decided to do this podcast, just because of all the crazy that is going on in our world right now, which I call especially here in the United States, I call the Great Trifecta. And that trifecta is that perfect storm of the pandemic, which has led into economic strain and job insecurity or losing one's job, as well as the racial tension and unrest that is going here in the States. And this is why I call it the Great Trifecta in that perfect storm. And one of the many things, but one of the things that this trifecta has produced is many people have been reevaluating their relationships. Now, in this podcast, I'm going to be focusing on romantic, intimate relationships, but the wisdom that I share with you here today, it would apply to evaluating all of your relationships. But let's stay focused on romantic relationships for our time together here. And so what happened, like I said, a lot of people are reevaluating their relationships. And here's how and here's why. With the pandemic that spurred and started a lot of this at the beginning of 2020, there was the common knowledge where, there is an incubation period of 14 days. And unfortunately, I've actually known of people who have lost family members from COVID, and they transitioned in less than 14 days. And that is shocking. That is very, very shocking. So one of the things that I ask myself, I invite you to ask yourself this question and see what answer you get into your life. But it's the same question I posed also to my clients and students. And it is, if you only had 14 days left on this earth, is the relationship that you're in, whether you're married, you're with your significant other, you live with them, you don't live with them, but the romantic relationship that you're in, at the end of 14 days, would you have wonderful memories that you will take with you to the other side of how beautiful your relationship was, how loving your relationship was, how satisfying your relationship was, right? And how life-affirming your relationship was. And if you answer no to any part of that, then you need to reevaluate the relationship that you're currently in. Because here's one thing. The life that you're living right now, even though I do believe in reincarnation, because I really follow Eastern traditions, spiritual traditions, but even though I believe in reincarnation, this is the only life you're living right now, right? This life is not a dress rehearsal. So what happens is it's too valuable for you to waste your time on relationships and connections that do not feed your soul. All right. And this is something that's really been pushed in the forefront for many couples, especially because of social distancing and then also having to be isolated or even sequestered with your partner. And many people are learning two things that are happening. One is people are learning that if before the pandemic, there was a crack in the armor in your relationship, well, guess what? The pandemic has made that crack to be a big pothole, right? A big sinkhole. If before, and then on the flip side, if before the pandemic, your relationship was solid, what happens is in those instances, couples are finding out that the crisis that we're going through has actually made their relationship stronger, right? And so kind of reflect and think about that. Even look in your own life, in your own situation. If with your romantic partners now, if you're listening to this and you're not currently dating someone, I want you then to substitute your romantic partner with those close friendships that you have in your circle of influence. All right. So those are the two ways, especially for a lot of couples, what is going on. And what happens is, this is why as relationship coaches, we kind of joked about, oh, there's going to be a whole bunch of COVID divorces and maybe COVID babies. We're actually finding out it's actually been a COVID baby bust is what's going on, but I digress. But anyways, and because couples are having to spend almost 24/7 time with each other. They are not getting outside stimulation from other contacts and connections in the same way in the past, right? Because of social distancing and doing all of that. And so what happens is really putting a spotlight on romantic relationships. So if you answered to this first part where I said, evaluating your relationships after 14 days, if you responded that, no, I want to experience more, better, a different experience if I were to be off this earth in 14 days. If you said, you know what, I need to shift something, then here's the one other question that I would ask you to ask yourself to make that determination. All right. And that one question is, are you continuing to grow and learn in your relationship? Right? I'm going to say that again. Ask yourself, are you continuing to grow and learn in your relationship? And if you said no, okay, if you said no to that, if you're not growing and learning as an individual in your relationship, this is a clear indication that your relationship isn't growing. And if your relationship isn't growing, you're not going to receive the satisfaction that deep down in your heart you desire to receive, experience, and have. Okay? And because that is extremely important. And here's the other thing. If you are, say, not married yet, okay, to your partner, or you're not living with your partner, and that is the end goal, that's where you would like for it to go. However, if your relationship isn't growing and learning, you will never get to that point, ladies. I hate to tell you that. I hate to rain on the parade, but this is truth that is speaking, okay? If your relationship isn't growing, you will not get the commitment that you deeply desire, right? And so if you're not paying attention to this when a relationship isn't growing, this can actually lead to three things that will manifest and you'll start to see in your relationship. And these three things are extremely important for you to be aware of so that you will know, oh my goodness, here's one of those signs that I really need to pay attention to. All right, so I want you to write this down. So the first thing that you'll notice if your relationship isn't growing, you'll start to feel frustration, irritability with each other, and picking at each other's habits. All right, because when you feel frustrated, you start to nitpick at your partner because your needs aren't being met. All right, and that is why that is happening. So I want to break this down even more personal with you. And this is something I'm sharing with my broader community on a bigger level. I've shared it with my group coaching and also with my private clients, but now I'm going to share it with you. So you remember I asked myself, okay, if I only have 14 days, are you getting everything that you want in your relationship? And my answer, it may surprise some of you, was no, I am not. Now, I've been with my partner for 6 years. And we have a really good connection. We have a really good relationship. And here's what's interesting. Asking yourself this question, it doesn't have to just be relationships that are in crisis. Because our relationship was not in crisis. But for the past year though, especially after I had my 2 operations last year for my hysterectomy, I just really started looking and asking myself some different questions, because I was very much alone with my thoughts a lot of times, because I was recovering and I couldn't work, I couldn't drive, I couldn't do a lot of things. And you hear some of the parallels into this year with being self-isolated and social distancing, and so many businesses are being closed, and so we're not going anywhere, right? Well, I got a preview of that last year when I was recovering from my surgeries. And so what happens is I just started seeing and noticing, and certain things were just getting to me a little bit more where they weren't in the past. It was because I was really asking myself the question of, are all of my needs being met? All right. But it wasn't until when COVID started, I asked myself that question again. So last year it was more, okay, let's infuse some more, juiciness back into, the relationship, especially after recovering from, the hysterectomy and everything else like that. And I will tell you, my partner, he was my rock through that whole entire thing, right? He was my rock and everything else. And so when COVID came around, I had to seriously ask myself that question. And one of the honest answers that came back was, I am ready for more. Now, many of you also know that I practice polyamory relationship dynamic, but I'm at a point right now in my life where I'm really choosing to go mano a mano, one-on-one right now, and taking a break from the poly dynamic. So with that, I just said to myself, all right, I am open to wanting more in my life. So I had, about 2 months ago, I had an effective intimacy communication conversation with my partner of 6 years. And that effective intimacy communication, that is a technique I teach in all of my trainings and all of my teaching, all of my coaching. And I will put a link down in the description box if you're listening to this on YouTube, a link to that training so that you can purchase it yourself to help you in any kind of conversations that you want to have with anyone in your life, whether it's a favorable conversation or a challenging conversation, but especially if it's a challenging conversation. So I'm going to kind of preview what effective intimacy communication even sounds like, because in the conversation that I had with my partner. And this is how I opened up that conversation. First of all, I said to him, hey, I texted him and I said, hey, when you have a moment, I would love to share something with you to get your insight. So he's like, okay, he's like, text me back. He goes, I'll be available in like an hour or so. I'm like, okay, great, perfect, right? The reason why I did that is I wanted to get his undivided attention at a time where he wasn't preoccupied doing something else. And the reason why I had shared with him is like, hey, I have something I want to share with you to get your insight, is I wanted him to come to the conversation being open and ready to listen, hear, and contribute, versus coming to the conversation being defensive. If I had said to him, hey, I have something I want to talk to you about, he would have come to the conversation somewhat defensive, because that's human nature, all right? So that's how I opened up that dialogue. So let's fast forward to an hour. So I opened up the conversation. I said to him, I said, you know what? I was just thinking, babe, I really appreciate our intimate companionship. To which he was like, okay. And I was, and I said, you're probably wondering what I mean by that. He goes, yeah, I was actually wondering. He goes, I have an idea of what you mean, but I said, no, it's always best to clarify. So I said to him, with the intimate companionship, I said, you know, those couples that have been together, married, or they've been together for like 30 years, and they really know each other very well. They can even finish each other's sentences and things of that nature. And they know each other so well that they trust each other, they depend on each other, they're, you know, the right-hand person. But the only thing that at that point in their relationship, the romance part isn't quite there like it used to be, right? So this is what changes it into an intimate companionship, right? Because the romance part isn't quite there. And what I shared with Mike was that is how I feel and see our relationship now. And to which he was quiet with that. And because I know he was thinking, I know he was reflecting on the words that I just said. So I gave him the room in which to be with his thoughts there. And then I asked him, what are your thoughts about that? How do you feel about that? And I shared, I said, you know, I felt this way, especially around, you know, with my hysterectomy and recovering from that. And then he shared with me very honestly, he said, yeah, I can actually see your point. He goes, I can actually understand how you're feeling because yes, I've actually felt some of that myself. But he was like, you know, we're a really good team and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I know that. And that's what I say, we're really good intimate companions. And I shared with him was, I said, you know what? The nature of our relationship right now doesn't have to change. Actually, it really isn't changing. We're just not romantic with each other. And we're not necessarily that significant other, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend kind of dynamic, right? And so that part has changed. And so now we're in that mode right now of adjusting to this new normal. Now, what happens is he still has a key to my place. I still have a key to his place. We still share some similar resources together. And we've gotten together for dinner, and he's going to come by my place to fix something electronic for me and all of this other stuff. So that part is all still there. We're just not a romantic couple with each other anymore. And we came to that. And the reason why we were able to transition to this was one, the conversation and how I presented it, giving him another alternative of how to view our relationship, right? So I gave him something else to think about, something else for him to latch onto, for him to consider, which was the intimate companionship. And he was like, you know, that feels good, right? And things like that. So that is how I worked it in my own personal relationship because I started to see how I was nitpicking or starting to nitpick on some of his traits. Now, what happens is asking this question is very different than my philosophy about 3 strikes and you're out. I did a video on 3 strikes you're out. It's on YouTube. I'll also, so you can look for it there in YouTube. But 3 strikes and you're out basically deals when you're having toxic energy or toxic behavior or drama in your relationship, then you definitely need to look at 3 strikes and you're out. But with this one here about asking yourself, are you continuing to grow and learn in your relationship? That is for any relationship, even if it's a relationship that's on good standing, even if it's a relationship where there is no drama, like my relationship with my partner, there was no drama, but things still were not necessarily where were fulfilling me to the maximum like they used to be, right? So it's a different set of circumstances that are going on there. And so if you're in that case, like myself, then that's how it would look like. So like I said, frustrations and irritability, if you don't pay attention to those signs, you start nitpicking at your partner because your needs aren't being met. Now, the second thing to look out for, right? When your relationship isn't growing, if you're not paying attention, is you may end up having the wandering eye, which can lead to an affair, right? So this is driven by the need to feel needed, wanted, desired, and appreciated, right? And this is because your needs aren't being met, all right? It's because your needs aren't being met. Now, the third thing it can also produce is self-destructive behavior just to create excitement in your life. Okay. Now, an affair is one outpicturing of self-destructive behavior, right? But also it can look like spending too much money on things to fill a hole within yourself that your relationship is not able to do that. Taking illegal substances to overdoing it with illegal substances, right? If I can say that out my mouth. Or it can be overdoing it with prescription drugs, right? Any kind of substance, overdoing it. Overeating is another thing that happens. The other thing is hanging out with a totally different group of friends to escape, and these friends may not necessarily be healthy for you. All of these behaviors is to distract you from what you are not receiving in your relationship, right? And this is because your needs are not being met, right? The third way that it can look is, oh, I'm sorry, I already kind of said the third way. So those are the three ways: feeling frustration and irritability with each other. You start nitpicking. The wandering eye that can lead to an affair, and self-destructive behavior just to create excitement and distract you in life. Now, what is the common link in all three of those set of circumstances? It is your needs not being met. All right. Now, I believe in reincarnation, right? But this is the only life I'm living right now. This is the only life you're living right now, and it's not a dress rehearsal. So what happens is, the pandemic got real serious really quick. How life can be that short when you're not even prepared, ready, or it's just coming out of the blue, like COVID did for so much of the world. It just came out of the blue. So what happens is life is too precious to waste your time on relationships that are not feeding your soul and that are not in your best interest, or you are not getting your needs met. Because that is a sorry state of affairs if you were to leave this earth and that is what you would remember and take with your grave about your relationships. And so I want you to get that serious about this aspect of your life, because it is affecting all areas of your life, especially if you have children. Because if you have children, you are teaching your kids how to be in a dysfunctional relationship. That is the family value you are passing down to your children, is how to maintain a dysfunctional relationship. So if that is the family value that you do not want to pass down to your children, then you need to make a change in your relationships. Because that old adage, you're staying together for the kids, that's an old way of thinking that no reputable marriage counselor, coach, relationship, whatever, would ever say to you. Right? Because you are teaching your kids dysfunction and you're teaching your kids drama. It is better to teach your kids, you know what, not everything in life turns out the way that you would like for it. However, you persevere from it, you survive, and then you thrive. So what you're teaching your kids is resiliency. And then you will teach your children how to be in a healthy relationship. First and foremost, a healthy relationship with yourself. And then when you have that healthy relationship with yourself, you then can have the healthy relationship with other people. All right. And so if you've come down to the decision, like myself, that it was time to move on, right? What happens is it's all about parting in peace. And yes, you can part in peace. And it's also called a conscious separation, is also what it is called. And I invite you to really kind of take in the concept of a conscious separation for yourself so that you can get the love that you deserve in your life. And so I want to share with you several benefits of parting in peace. and a conscious separation. And the first way you go about doing this is really understanding in terms of communication and really learning effective intimacy communication, because that teaches you how to feel, to be heard, listen to, understand how to communicate your needs, wants, desires, and even frustrations while remaining empowered. And also by empowering and honoring your partner as well. Okay, that's how you mitigate the drama. So here are some of the benefits of when you part in peace, when you have a conscious separation. Well, the first thing, and I'll repeat this because I just said it, you honor yourself, you honor the relationship that you had, and depending on how it ends, the relationship that the two of you will have in the future. And you also honor your former partner as well. That's about parting in peace, okay? The second benefit of this is remember the wonderful lessons and growth you experienced in the relationship, even if some of the lessons were hard. Because if the lesson contributed to building your self-worth and your confidence in the end, it was a valuable lesson, right? So one example of this was over 30 years ago. My first serious relationship was with a gentleman where it turned into domestic violence. We were together for 4 years. The first 2.5 years of our relationship was actually very blissful. And we got engaged. And after he proposed and he had that rock on my finger, that is when Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde showed up. As soon as that ring was on my hand, his attitude was, I own you now. And then the whole entire dynamic turned into an abusive relationship with domestic violence. But one of the biggest lesson that I learned from that relationship was to own my voice, own my worth, stand up for myself, and defend myself. Because up until that point, I was this little mousy introvert that was in the back of the room and, was afraid of having all this attention on her. That was the woman back then that was in the middle of this dynamic. And that situation forced me to defend myself like I had never done in my life before. And I've never let that go ever since. I let go of the pain. I let go of the anger. I let go of the resentment. I let go of the man-hating that I had at that time. I let go of all that. But what I did keep was my self-worth, my self-confidence, and my self-esteem. So that was the beautiful lesson that I learned from that tumultuous situation and how I can now talk about it feeling empowered. Okay, so that's why that is so powerful. Now, if you are already in my Love Goddess or my Manifest Your Man programs, right, the technique that I used in order to work through this was the witness perspective. All right, so that will be in your coaching, especially how to get unstuck from fear, right? And so it's in that training, and it's the witness perspective. So if any of you do any kind of training or studying with me, you will learn that as well. Now, the other benefit from parting in peace with a conscious separation is it allows you to transition the nature of your relationship, coming from a place of peace and love versus hate, anger, resentment, and ill feelings, right? So just think for yourself. Would you like to transition out of a relationship and it be peaceful without the drama that's there, right? Most people would say yes. If you say no, that is your ego that is talking, because the ego wants to be right. The ego mind wants to be right. Well, he did this to me and all this other stuff. You want to get people on your side to validate how you are feeling. That is all coming from the ego. That is all coming from the ego, because your higher self, your spirit, could care less about that shit. Could care less about it. Your ego cares about it, but your inner spirit that is connected to whatever your source is does not care about that. Your inner light wants peace, love, and moving on, right? So what happens is parting in peace allows for that peaceful transition. especially if you want to have this next benefit of parting in peace, which is it allows you to remain friends if that is what you choose. And that's where conscious companionship comes from there. Now, in Manifest Your Man, the ladies learn 6 different relationship levels that relationships gravitate through. I'm actually going to be adding I'm actually going to be adding intimate companionship as a 7th level, right? Because this would be, all right, you got that commitment. You have been with that partner for a long time, like I have with mine. There was no drama, craziness, or any of that as to why you are not going to be in that romantic relationship anymore, but you're maintaining a friendship. So that would be an intimate companionship. That would be there. So that's the 7th level. And then I'm going to be adding into that training and go a little bit deeper with that. And so that is the benefit it allows you to do. And so here is one of the final benefits that I really want you to pay attention to. I think of all of them, it may be the most important one. And that benefit is you get closure from that relationship. And by closure, it frees you up to be in a new relationship where your needs can be met. Or should I say those needs that are most important to you? Because ladies, no man, no person is going to provide you 100% of what you are looking for. That is impossible, right? That is impossible to achieve. Because think of it this way, are you able to achieve 100% of what you want to achieve in your own life and how you are? The answer would be no, right? Because we're human. So you can't expect that of anybody else either, right? But what happens is you get that closure so you can move on. And that way you're not stuck in the pain of the past, but you're healing in the present and you are freeing yourself to live for another day in the future with a partner that will make your heart skip a beat, that will make your body tremble, and that will make you feel that you have reached nirvana and things of that nature. Because let me tell you, that is what the intention that I have put out there for my next relationship. And so in this time of closure, right, look at that as me time. And that's how I'm viewing this time of pause that we're having right now, even within our society, even within our world, even within our communities. I am using this as me time, self-love time, because I'm saying right now, I'm a free agent right now. And I've been in a relationship for like the past 20 years, nearly 20 years. This is the first time in a long time that I am a free agent and I am enjoying my own company, right? And that is going to usher in some more vibrant energy into my life. It's the same vibrant energy that you can usher into your life. And so this is what I wanted to share with you here today in this Vixen podcast about how to know when it's time to leave him and move on. And you are doing this for yourself, first and foremost. If you have children, you're also doing it for your children. And then to another degree, you're also doing it for them. So they can actually heal whatever issues within themselves they need to heal. Maybe they can move on to a relationship that's more fitting of them, just like you're moving on to a relationship that's more fitting of you. And if you are able to maintain a friendship, in your life, you have a lifelong friend that will always be there. And that's what I feel about my partner. He will be a lifelong friend in my life, always there. And that feels amazing and that feels good, right? So with that, I invite you to do that. Now, if you need help or assistance in helping you arrive to that point, I invite you to click on the link below to schedule some time to chat with me. What happens is I offer 5 complimentary discovery sessions each month. right? It's about for 30 minutes and it's complimentary. And there's a short little form that you fill out. So it takes about 10 minutes so I can know what it is that you want to talk about. But yes, if you're at this point in your life and you need clarity with this, let's have a conversation around it, right? Like I said, I offer 5 complimentary discovery sessions each month. And then the other thing is, if you want to join my Sassy community, there's a link below in the description box of how you can go ahead and do that by first starting taking my Love Goddess quiz. That is how you can enter into my community. And that quiz will show you how you are projecting to men and what signals you are sending to men. And then when you're in my community, it'll give you tips and tricks on how you can be your vibrant feminine power so that you can attract and keep a high caliber man that will stand the test of time and things of that nature. So you can go ahead and do that. We can have a conversation. You can be in my tribe. So with that, everyone, we are complete. And yes, I want you to take this very seriously and do this examination in all areas of your life. But first and foremost, do it with your intimate romantic relationship, the person that influences you the most so that you can get the freedom that you desire, the love that you deserve, and the happiness that I know each and every one of you desires to have. And with that, namaste, we are complete.